My name is Rob Weiss. I'm a clinician, therapist, author, and just really here to try to help you guys get your questions answered in ways that you may not in other places. I have a little bit of a dream. I feel like a lot of, and Tammy, you've heard me say this, but a lot of the therapists who I thought I really wanted to learn from and get to know, I only got to see them in a conference or at some workshop somewhere. I never really got to talk to them. And, we live in a time now when you guys can ask people experts that you want questions. And I think every expert should take an hour out of their day a week and just, give that time so that people can understand things. So anyway, here I am, 10 books in, a bunch of treatment centers. I'm here in Boston doing some work here. I'll be back next week and or later in the week. And I just really want to welcome you here. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad you were able to make it. We had a little schedule thing. I was going, are you going to be there? I don't want to be alone. So,
yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're going to start with, there was one in the chat. It says, Dr. Rob, are there any exercises that one can do while separated from their betrayed partner to help develop empathy? Any tools?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can, well, Tammy, did you write that question?
I did not.
Okay. So I really want to stand up for, I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse. And it is a book about, it really is a book for men to understand what they've done when they've cheated on a woman in particular, and how women experience betrayal and how that might differ from how a man might think about it. And I wrote this book for men who are trying to figure out, how do I develop empathy for my wife and understand what she's going through when she's also so angry and not exactly the warmest and fuzziest we've ever been, and I feel guilty, and how do I have kind of the right stance and attitude to be able to regain her respect and her trust. And so I think this is probably, well, I don't think there was another book on the topic, so there you go. It's called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. And my experience is that I have not actually had anyone say they didn't find it helpful. I've had some people say they didn't relate to it, excuse me, not that it wasn't helpful. So that's the best resource I can offer you, and I will make 12 cents off of that. Thank you very much.
I'm going to add that for those of you that identify as Christian, Martin Marie collaborated on a second edition of the book that has biblical context so that you can refer back to that. So if that's something that is helpful for you, that you relate to, there are 2 versions of the book. So if you don't want that version, make sure you're ordering the original. And if you want the one that connects specifically in a Christian way, order the one that Marnie Faree co-authored. Okay, so questions. Hello, Dr. Love, your work and your team. I was watching this TV show and it had a sex scene. My first thought is I'm never going to have this type of relationship and be able to engage freely with a partner whom I trust. I know that I don't know the future, but it doesn't change my mind. How can I change this feeling and thought?
Well, I appreciate your saying you don't know the future. And I guess I hear 2 things, and they're very sort of 12-step program kinds of things. Maybe you might want to help weigh in here, Tammy, but there's the idea, first of all, of I can't judge my insides by your outsides. So I see a fantasy, which movies are, of some relationship that is working out so beautifully like none of mine have. And immediately I'm looking at an opportunity to beat myself up for no reason. So, where I would suggest you think about is this is where empathy to ourselves is important. Like, gee, when I think about the circles I have in relationships, and believe me, it's not just, a marriage, it's also friendships and community. I struggle in relationships for my own reasons and a lot to do with how I grew up. I always will. So, I think you have to just be a lot more forgiving and understand the lessons that you learned when you're growing up may not have been the most useful. But here's the thing, one of the great things, actually, I'll tell this to all of you, so this will be useful for you guys. This came up in the rooms on Friday. Someone was asking if he was dating the right person and how their relationship was going. And so this might be useful to you. When you're dating someone, and this will come to you eventually, one of the things that people will often ask is, how do I know if I'm dating someone who's the right person because we have these problems or those problems? And the answer really is that who that person is going to be with you is pretty much who they're always going to be. But there are things that you can improve. You can improve communication. You can improve empathy. You can improve how you touch each other, how you have fun together. But who you are together, pretty much who you are, you know. So who you are, you're going to find people who will love you, people who will adore you, people who appreciate you. And you can't gauge who that is because it's who they see, not who you see. So, you know, what I would read in that is that you're feeling a little depressed and a little hopeless. And I get that. But I'd also tell you, I mean, just from my own personal experience, I had, you know, I'm in the people healing, relationship healing business. And what I see in the people that I work with who keep showing up for this work, and yes, it is a freaking lifetime of work because we have enough early emotional damage and ways that we've played that out that we probably need guidance for the rest of our lives. So what? We still get to have a life and have a good life. However, we don't get to live it like other people. So Tammy, can I give them my standard like view of addicts and those of us who struggle with trauma and broken relationships?
Please do.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't like to do this too often. And Tammy will remember when I repeat things. So this is how I look at us, you know, and this is myself included. Like I had a psychotic mother, you know, I was in mental institutions, not for myself, but watching over her and taking care of her at a very young age. You know, I'm screwed up. I'm a sex addict, all of it. But when I think about, you know, our journey, I think about life in this way. Life is like a track. You know, it's like a really beautiful track. And if you have great family and really good support and good education and lots of love and self-esteem and good genetics, you know, you're going to go out on that track and you're just going to run around it and you're just going to, and life is running around the track. You're going to have great friends and, you know, you're going to go through the grief of loss and the joys of gains, but life's pretty much going to be okay. And when things are hard, you'll figure it out. And when they're good, you'll celebrate them. But that's not us. You know, we look at that track and we have broken bones. We have limbs that don't work. We have injuries that need repair or help. So the question is, and this is what I want to say to you, does that mean we will not make it round the track? Does that mean we don't get to have what everybody else has? Love, family, community, relationship, healthy sexuality? And my answer to you is yes, we absolutely do. But we're not going to jump out on that track of life and know how to negotiate it and just, you know, we're going to need help. When I go around the track of life, I have someone holding my hand. I've got someone to lean on. Someone else is handing me a crutch. You know, my run around the track is like, what's that thing they do with batons, Tammy?
They pass the batons when they're doing a relay.
I don't know, but relay,
it's
right?
A relay.
So
yeah.
For us, life is not like you're out on the track by yourself and you run all the way around. For us, it's more like a relay race where we have other people to hand things off to us and help us hand them off. Like we can't do this by ourselves, but with a lot of support, whether that's therapy and groups and situations, I hope like this, we get there. It's just we don't get there in the same way and we need a lot more support, but we get there unless you decide that you don't want to try. And let me say something about that. I've worked with a lot of people who came in to see me, especially in the beginning, especially male sex addicts, who would say, I don't want to go through this. I know what's going to happen. Why bother? And what they're really saying to me is, I don't want to have hope. I don't want to hope that my life's going to get better, and don't give me hope. Because if you tell me I'm going to get it better and then I fail, then I'm even in worse shape than I was before because I had hope and now I'm, you know. And the answer is the answer is not to avoid hope. The answer is to learn what you did to get you knocked down on your knees and get back up again and try to not do that again with our help. Anyway, that's a long-winded description of saying you'll be fine. Keep working on it.
So two things to that. The track analogy I really like, and there's a track coach. You know, there are coaches that help us along the way and teach us how to run the proper form and all of those kind of, like, you know, everything we learn, usually we don't have a natural ability. We need to learn it, you know? So, I mean, even the high athletes have some ability, but they always have a coach that helps them along the way. The other thing, go ahead, please.
Well, and they practice.
Yes,
so
yes.
When you go to 12-step meetings, when you practice dating and really practice dating, not go finding sex partners, when you are working on building social skills and having fun with new friends, you are building that coalition of people who's going to get you around the track, and you're practicing, because it's not like Tammy says do this and I say do that and then everything's great. You have to go out there and fall on your face and date the wrong person and screw it up and then come back to us and figure out what you did wrong, and we will help. we are, you know, the metaphor for all the people. Anyway, number 2, what's the part 2, Tammy?
Well, so the never, like one of the things that was challenging for me early on was always and forevers and nevers, you know, any of those, you know, cause I'd be, oh, I'm never gonna, or I'm always gonna have to, or whatever. And that was a really negative place for me to be. And so going back to the 12 step, the one day at a time, well, just for today. So just for today, you're not gonna have the movie sex scene, you know. My first thought was, do people really have movie sex scenes? I don't know, but that's a diversion. But just for today, you know, can you be okay with where you're at, and can you believe that, like Rob said, that you'll have hope that someday you're going to have the ability to trust somebody else again? And I believe also that that's not only possible but probable if you continue to do the work.
Can I also say, I'm sorry, we're going to let's riff on this. I've been married for 18 years to someone I absolutely love. And I can tell you that what you see on the screen is not what marriages are. It's not what long-term relationships are. It's what honeymoons are, or little blips of what goes on between people. You know, real marriages are, you know, exactly what they should be, mostly boring. 2 people supporting each other. But once in a while they get, you know, anyway, being in a relationship is not what you're seeing on the screen. That is a fantasy. But I'm glad you have the fantasy. Having the fantasy will motivate you to keep trying.
Okay, next question. Now you have a men's addict intensive schedule, a couples intensive in the near horizon. Yes, we have plans for that. So yes, hold. And if you need more immediate assistance with that, I know some people that offer those kind of on a personal basis, and feel free to reach out to me via email. But yes, we actually are planning as part of after the men's intensive and some of the other work that there will be opportunities for people who have been through that to engage, you know, as couples, you know, for that. So while you teed that one up for me, all these sports analogies. So while you teed that one up for me, I'm going to tell you that Dr. Rob will begin a 2-week intensive program. And I say he will begin, it's Seeking Integrity, but he will be the lead facilitator for this. So we're so excited that he's going to be the lead facilitator for it. But he will begin that March 31st. It is a men's only program that will be the 2-week intensive. After that, Dr. David Fawcett, who also does webinars on this site, and Dr. Rob have joined forces, and they will have a co-occurring sex and intimacy disorder along with chemical dependency. Often it's stimulants, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily stimulants. Again,
Drugs
this is just for men.
Sex.
Yeah, drugs and sex. Yeah, and if one's tied to the other, then this is a program that you should consider. We're also opening a program in Thailand in April. So we have all of those things on the horizon, and you can reach out to us and we will give you more information.
Yeah, and let me just say one thing about that. So we're doing a whole bunch of things at the same time. Tammy and I and the people we work with, we've spent about a year putting this platform together, building relationships with you guys, getting our podcast started, you know, just really building out the parts of our world that we wanted to. And now we're starting to open treatment programs. And I haven't had a treatment program of my own for about 4 years. So I'm really excited about opening some. And the idea behind this is to give what we can give away for free, so that if you don't go to treatment, great, you know, we can still talk to you and help you. Also, people who go through our treatment programs will be here also, and they'll be getting their support in this way as well. So, you know, it's a very busy time for us, but I appreciate the suggestions, because the more you say, like, I need partners work, or I feel left out as a partner, I want to do couples things, or whatever you feel you need, I want to do grief work, or I want to understand how to separate. We're going to be looking at workshops. We're going to be looking at all kinds of formats across the country, because we have the facility to do that. So let us know the things that you feel are useful. And that means go to Sex and Relationship Healing, write Tammy, or just drop a note at Contact Us. And if there's anything you want from me or from us, I wish you had a group for this. I wish you had a group, you know, we're really in listening mode right now, because we're growing, you know, crazy good.
And I just feel the crazy right now, because we do have a lot on our plates right now. So I was thinking, yeah, we don't sit here and twiddle our thumbs. So, okay, next question. What can one express to their partner to ask them to hold off on divorce until progress can be made if they have suffered from staggered disclosure and are done?
That's a very difficult question for me to answer. You know, I certainly can't answer that you for specifically because, you know, I don't know the state of your marriage. I don't know who your spouse is. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what her personal experience is from her history. I don't know anything about the two of you, but so I can only speak in abstract. And I probably know more if you said, you know, she just found out this would help actually. Write us a note in the chat and say, she just found out last week about everything, or, you know, she's known for 3. Do we know, Tammy, how
I
long?
do know more. So it's been going on longer term. She's known.
Okay.
And yes, so there's a longer history.
Okay.
I've had the pleasure of speaking with his wife. So
Okay.
you know.
So I can't say, and certainly we can't speak about that.
Correct.
But I will say this. I really, I think you just kind of, I want to say this in the best way possible. I think I almost always know when a spouse is like, oh, I'm out of here, but it's coming from a screw you kind of place. And really they still want in because it's kind of obvious that they do. They still want to have this piece of information. They still want to know where you're going here. They still want to, because the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference.
Correct.
So to me, you know, I can't answer your question, but I can speak for, you know, most of the couples I work with stay together. Because most people have so much more going on for them as a couple and have worked out so many things together by the time they run into this issue that they're willing to work through this and stay. And the way I would offer as proof that the few couples that do break up are often those who have only been together a year and a half, and they're kind of like, oh my God, what were we thinking? And they're out. So those couples that have been together for a period of time, when a spouse says, I'm done, I really feel that out. And if it does seem like they are in an emotional place, they're looking for a place of their own, they're getting the attorney, and they're not kind of wanting in all the time. Tell me more about that. I want to know, but more like moving away. It's more of a felt experience. But all I can tell you is this, you absolutely have to respect what she has to say. You know, there may be a time once or twice, maybe with a therapist, not every evening when you see her, because I know addicts like me would do that. You might want to tell her how you feel and that you don't want her to leave or whatever it means to you. I think that would be a good thing to do in therapy. If it were me and I were working with you, I'd say write a letter to her about what she means to you and why you want her to stay and why you hope she will hang out to see what happens. Bring it to your therapist or your sponsor, read it to them so that the goal is to not have a lot of hooks in it, like I wish you would forgive me or I never meant to hurt you or all that crap that makes spouses angry. And then give them a clean version of it. Maybe even just mail it to her or email it to her and not be there reading it, waiting for her response. I think the less pressure you put on her and the more honest you are, the better. But I think by the time you're asking questions like the one you're asking, I think the answer is already probably clear to you. You may or may not want to know what that is, but it is probably already clear.
Okay, next question. Can you help explain more about gaslighting and how it affects the partner? And how do you bring up a conversation about Out of the Doghouse to your partner who has read it but doesn't seem to want to apply the practices?
Well, this is sad. So I'll say again, I wrote Out of the Doghouse as a what the F do you think you're doing book to men. So I haven't really run into a whole lot of men who truly love their spouses or have loved them, who have a response like that. To me, that's either there's a whole lot of denial, a whole lot of narcissism, or the person's still acting out, or you are the reason that he puts responsibility on his whatever it is, he's not being accountable, because someone who's accountable would say, oh my God, how could I do that to her? Because there's no other way to read that book. So I'm more disturbed about the fact, again, and I think you've been here before, that he doesn't seem to have any interest in having empathy for you. So gaslighting. Gaslighting is when I want to make you think that you're crazy. And the way that I do this is when I've said something to you like, oh, I'll see you at 7 o'clock tonight, and then I don't show up because I'm drinking or I'm sexing or whatever. And you say to me later on, I'm so mad at you. You said you were going to be there at 7. And I say, I never said that. I never said I was going to be there at 7. You know, in other words, or you say to me, I feel like you're cheating. You're really distant. I say, why are you always so jealous? So gaslighting is kind of turning the question back on the person or lying in a way that leaves them feeling like they were wrong for asking or what's wrong with them for suspecting anything about you. And what you're really doing is you're slowly making them crazy, because their reality, which is true, we as addicts, active addicts, tried to deny, because if we agreed with them, and then we'd have to show them what we're doing, and we don't want to show them what we're doing, so we cover it up and pretend that it's their fault and make them feel bad and blame them. Another way to gaslight, I guess I think I could think of this would fit in this category, is blaming your partner for your acting out. Well, if you weren't so fat, I wouldn't go with other women. Or if you, ever returned to that weight you were before you had the kids, or if you had time for me, in other words, making them feel like, doubt themselves, like they're responsible for something they found out that hurt them. And so I think that's another way to gaslight. Anyway, you're trying to, can you say that word, Tammy? I can't.
I could if we were, yeah.
It's a lawyer word.
Yes.
When you're externalizing the problem somewhere else and making it about her, even though what you're really doing is trying to hide your own stuff, that's gaslighting. And what it does to people is it makes them feel like they're crazy, because you're the most important person to them. You're the closest person to them. You're the most attached person to them. You're their spouse. And so they expect, as we should, that our partners, our people closest to us, will help guide our reality. Sometimes I'll say to my husband of 18 years, is it getting late? I'm not sure. He'll guide me. Yes, later than you think. Or is it cold? In little teeny ways and in big ways, we guide each other's reality. And when you take your partner's reality and you skew it over and over again, it warps their sense of themselves. And it takes them a while to get over that. And it makes them very, very angry.
Obfuscate is the word. And I was thinking, I had somebody that commented that they were playing the podcasts out loud.
Okay. What does that mean?
Well, because like you've got the Out of the Doghouse podcast. So they just started playing it as background information in their home. And I thought,
for the husband.
Yes. If you won't read the book, here's some information. So
my only fear about someone who I'm afraid someone like that's going to hit you. Like if you keep pushing it, and if someone has the door shut that much to reality, and you keep pushing it and pushing it, there's a reason that he keeps that door closed. And at a certain point, it isn't your job. It's like if someone's hitting you, it's not your job to point out why they're hitting you. At a certain point, you just need to get out of there and take care of yourself. And so I would suggest to you that you can only push this idea of empathy so far, and then it might turn around and bite you in the butt. And that would scare me for you. That's what comes up for me.
So the next question is interesting. It says, whenever you mention that you're an expert in the field, I feel bad. Same with me. I'm a licensed professional engineer, and I cannot say I'm good at what I do. I say I'm good or decent at my job. It feels like I'm telling the listener that they're stupid. How can I change this?
Can you explain the question to me?
Well, I think that
Sure. Let me just ask you first. Is this kind of like the guy who saw the movie of the couple in love and kind of said, oh, I'll never have that? Is it like that?
It feels like that, but it feels like it's a self-worth type of thing where if it's like I'd be bragging if I said that, or I don't really fundamentally believe that, that I'm that good. See what I mean?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think you're talking about the fundamental, and I haven't, what is so great? I have to say this to you, Tammy. I haven't felt that feeling in a really long time, but I know what that person's talking about. It's the idea that I feel like a fraud.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That you see me this way, but you don't see the real me. The real me is not lovable or a loser, or it's this sense of what Pat Carnes would call the core beliefs, that basically I'm unlovable or unworthy inside of me. And where that comes from is nothing to do with your work. But you do what you see in me, I think, if I can explain it explain it in this way. What you see in me is I'm no longer ashamed of myself. I feel good about who I am. I feel good about my accomplishments. And I've worked really hard in therapy with medication and in 12-step program to claw back a life for myself that I feel like reflects who I am now. Not 20 years ago, 30 years ago in the addiction, but now. So, but that didn't happen right away. It took a lot of steps along the way. And so, all I can say to you is that you're not going to go from, I don't deserve to consider myself a professional to, I'm a professional. I think it takes time. But let me tell you a little story that a therapist told me once, let me tell you an experience that happened to me once, because I think it will be, anyway, it's what I want for you. And maybe you can think about it this way. When I was opening I opened a treatment center, my first treatment center in 1995. And when I was going to open it, it was the first time I was like going to work where I needed a briefcase. And I went to the store and I bought this really, really fancy old fashioned briefcase, like an old lawyer's briefcase, like from the 20s or 30s. And I had my initials put on it, you know, all that stuff. And it was such a big lawyer's briefcase. And I went to therapy one day, the day I got it. And I said, I don't think I deserve that. Like, this isn't me. Like, I just got out of school 2 years ago and, you know, I'm barely opening this place and look at this bag. Like it's too fancy. And, you know, this therapist, he looked at me and he said, maybe you'll grow into it. And so I would say that to you, you know, if you keep doing the right things, being honest with yourself, having integrity in your life, taking good care of yourself and making sure, you know, you're not dealing with depression or other kinds of issues that are pushing this. If you keep marching forward, you will get around that track and you too will earn your way into that feeling of, I am a professional. You deserve it.
And I think it's one of those things where, you know, you talk about you're a professional engineer. You know, Rob would not say he's an expert as a professional engineer. And so, you know, we find our areas of expertise, and that doesn't diminish the other person. You know, I concur that Rob is an expert in this field. That doesn't make any of the rest of us stupid. In fact, if we're engaging with him, to me, it feels like we have the opportunity to learn. So,
but I think Tammy, and just I'm going to support you in this way of thinking about it. I don't think it's that he sees his career profession path any less than mine. I think that when I say I'm a professional, he knows he's a professional too, but he feels like it's really hard for him to say that. And he looks at me and he's jealous or feels less than because I can say, hey, I'm a professional, and he struggles to let himself feel like he deserves that. And he's jealous on some level or envious or would like to have the ability to say, yeah, I deserve who I am. And what I related to in him is that feeling of, yeah, if you're feeling like a fraud. Like,
yeah,
you know,
no, I get that. So
anyway, but thank you. I think that's a great question. And I'm so glad we're here to answer it as a team. Woo-hoo.
So the next question, my partner and I are about to start the disclosure process. As the betrayer, I'm wondering how much specificity I should provide during this process.
So just for people in the group who are not familiar with this, and Tammy, I commit that we're going to do a video on disclosure and put it up on the website permanently forever.
Thank you. I actually have it scheduled, so.
Of course you do. Thank you. So anyway, disclosure is a process that goes on in certain kinds of therapies working with sex addiction, where mostly with Pat Carnes trained CSATs, where they work so that the spouse or the person who did not know about your acting out history learns about your acting out history. And so what this person is asking, I believe it's a gentleman, is how much can I tell my wife or not, or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is? And the answer is, so let me just try to lay this down for you. So what spouses need to know is when you were doing it, because they want to know, when I was working at this job, was that when you were doing it, or when we had this kid? Like, they want to fit it into their lives. They want to know how long, you know, was it with this person once or 50 times or different people, or they kind of want to get a sense of what it was. You know, was it prostitutes? Was it an affair? If it's an affair, they're going to want to know a lot more about that. So we tell them as much as we can in an inventory-like fashion without saying anything graphic. I don't talk about how big their what's-its was, or what hole went into what, or how many times we did. It's not something I would share for them, because even though they may feel, I want more details, at a certain point it becomes cruel for them to hear those things. And if you ever want to have a sex life again, or any kind of romantic life, you don't want her or him to be looking at you and then thinking, oh yeah, but think about what he did with that person who had 3 boobs, and, you know, whatever it is you told her. So we don't tell specific graphic images, and we don't really talk about specific places, but I will say, you know, escort, massage, all that kind of stuff. So it's a form of generality, but it is very specific. Did you have oral sex? Yes. Did you have anal sex? Yes. But I'm not saying, you get the idea. And the goal is, and so think about it in this way. Think about it like you're talking about a medical condition. You know, it's not how hot this incredible blah, blah, blah was. It was 3 times that week I did this. It's more like that.
And I really strongly suggest that you have qualified therapeutic support for this process so that you each have the time to prepare for it. You have the support, there's a plan. It's not something that, to have it be the best possible outcome, you're preparing in advance, you're supported during the process, and you have a plan for afterwards.
Both of you.
Both of you, yes, absolutely. Okay.
I want to say one more thing because you sort of brought it up, Tammy, so I'm going to make this your fault. I just want to let you guys know what an intensive is and what we're doing. I haven't actually actively done clinical work myself with clients in a number of years because I've been opening treatment centers, and I just want to dig myself back into the work and see if I'm any good at it. And,
oh, you are.
Whatever. So, and we're starting to open programs, and for me, this is a way to say, okay, let's get started. So some of our other PhDs and therapists are going to be there who would not ordinarily be there in treatment because they're going to be learning with me. They're going to be throwing their own stuff in, different experiential work. But understand that if Tammy says this is intensive with me, it is with me, but it's with a whole team of people. And when we're doing this work, we're also my interest is in making sure you don't end up in a halfway house, you don't end up in a hotel. So we're going to be running both the residential part of your stay as well as the actual treatment part. So it really is a completely contained experience, and I'm excited about it. So
I am too.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, so the next question is in the chat. So this is from a male partner, and his wife, the female addict, doesn't want to give me the code to her phone. I can only assume that means she is texting someone she shouldn't. She has used her phone in contacting her partners in the past. I don't think she is now, but I'm worried. Should I just wait and see if she does in the future, or what are my options? Struggling with boundaries.
Okay, and this is a man talking about his female partner?
Yes, but those questions get asked either way. So.
How long ago? No, I know that, but I mean, how long ago did he want to, how long ago, what I'm trying to figure out is how long ago had she cheated, or is she in program? She's a sex addict? Is she, okay, so
yes, and I think there's been about a year, let's use about that time frame.
So may I be direct? Dude, this is a bunch of bullshit. You get to have any code you want. You get to look at anything you want. She has no right anymore to that kind of privacy. She has to earn that back, and it can take a year or two. I get asked this, as Tammy said, constantly by female partners. It's like, well, or even people who are not, even people who are just newly in a relationship. I hear, should I have all the codes, words, and passes to my boyfriend's Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff? And my answer is, not if you trust them. Because if trust has not been broken, they get to have a private life. They get to communicate with people. You don't have to look over their shoulder. That's unhealthy. But once they have proven themselves not trustworthy, it is not okay for them to leave you doubting all the time. Who are they chatting with? Until you have restored trust, which could take a year or two. Much longer than she would like, I promise, because it's that way for all the addicts. It's like, wait a minute, it's been 3 weeks. Aren't you going to forgive me yet? That's why I wrote Out of the Doghouse. No, it could take a year. But absolutely, you have every right. This is not a boundary issue. This is, I don't know what's going on with her that she thinks it's okay for her to block you from. So let me speak about the underlying, what's going on underneath this for a relationship point of view. It's not just you get to look at everything or whatever. It's this. In the recovery period, the first 18 months after everything has been on the table and you're starting to work on it and all of that, give or take, that is a time when her job, if she's the person who's been cheating, even or an addict, it's her job to prove her trust, that she is trustworthy to you. She has broken your trust. So anything you need to restore your trust within reason, you want her to call you twice a day. You want to track her phone for a few weeks until you feel safe. You want to, whatever you need. People used to call this codependent and have really nasty names for it, enabling, enmeshed. I think that's a bunch of crap. I think if you don't feel safe about what your partner's doing and you want to track them, you want to, and you know what, the reason you want to do this, and this is great, people never think about this, but I know it. The reasons you want to know what's going on with her is because you still care about her. She thinks, oh God, I don't want him looking at, if she blocks you from that, she is keeping you from growing the trust that you need to grow, from caring about her in the way that you need to. And for what? Why? So I think you have a big issue there. I hope that you're wrong and she just feels like she has the right to have her phone back and nothing's going on. But if something is going on, it's going to be a big problem for you guys. And if she doesn't give you So let me just say one more thing. Sorry, Tammy.
It's okay.
Don't let anybody tell you. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't have the right to that code. If this woman wants to live with you and be your partner and she has betrayed you, she has a lot of work to do to re-earn your trust. It is not even acceptable in my mind for her to think about saying no. It's like, yeah, she can say no, but then you're like, bye-bye. I don't want to live with someone I can't learn to trust. And it's only been 3 months and now you're on your phone with the phone locked. Not okay. I think I've made that clear. Okay.
Okay. Next one. Could you talk about healthy masturbation? I'm nearly 3 months into sobriety, which means no dating sites and no porn. However, I'm experimenting with masturbation without the above. Thanks.
Sure. I think first of all, let me just speak about masturbation in general for sex and porn addicts. Some of us go crazy with masturbation when there's porn around. And then if we take the porn away, within a pretty short period of time, the masturbation, in other words, masturbation okay, porn not okay. What happens pretty quickly for many of us, probably the majority of us, is the masturbation starts to get less exciting, less interesting, and less frequent because we're not looking at all those crazy images. And therefore, if that happens, then maybe masturbation, at least on the surface, is not a big deal for you. There are other people, and it's just how their brains are built, who do a lot of visualizing, can see things in very visual terms, and they don't need the porn. They can go into intense fantasy and lose themselves in that addictive cycle without the porn. And for them, it may not be okay to masturbate ever, except maybe when they're with someone. Or they can masturbate with a partner, or their partner can masturbate them, or something like that. But when left alone, they start to go into that place. So I can't answer that for you specifically or for anyone. I think that's something that sponsors do, and you learn in your process. But I also want to say something else about masturbation and recovery, and this also comes from one of my mentors, Pat Carnes. And Tammy, I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but Pat used to say, when people would ask this question about, what is healthy masturbation, he would say, well, imagine you're taking yourself on a date. So if you were to take yourself on a date and you took yourself promptly into your own bathroom and you had sex for 1.5 minutes and then you were done and that was the end of the date, how would that date go? In other words, you wouldn't probably see someone have sex for 3 minutes with them and then ask them to leave, except as a sex addict. So why would you do that to yourself in masturbation? If you want to learn about sensuality, about self-love, then Pat would say masturbation's fine, but this is how you have to do it. You have to take yourself out to dinner by yourself. You have to go for a nice meal. You have to take yourself to a movie or go for a really good walk and enjoy yourself, and then take a hot bath and then light some candles, and then you can masturbate, because it's part of an experience of self-love, and not running to the bathroom or running into bed and sort of diffusing some tension for 3 minutes. So if you think about it as a form of dating or self-love and you can fit it into that scenario, I think that's a great way to think about it. And then again, you have to look at the separation between porn and masturbation and see whether that works for you or it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. The next one, my partner is very narcissistic and also bipolar too. He is addicted to porn and fast food. When one isn't active, the other one is. Even though he swears he is no longer watching porn after years of using when I knew nothing about it, I do check his phone and computer from time to time. Every so often I will find a very racy music video. Soft porn is putting it nicely. He also swears he didn't visit the site, even when it's in his history clearly shows it. He claims it must have been on another site that put it there, or he mistakenly clicked on it. He is outrageous with his lying. He's a covert narcissist who is also verbally abusive towards me. I'm so very sick of his tactics. In between times, he is a love bomber to the max. I have no money to move out, and I have chronic illness, which he makes worse with his anger. He is in a program, but I don't think he will ever really change. Is there hope for this situation?
Well, there's hope for every situation on some level. I guess in that situation, my hope would be that we can live as detached and as friendly, as much like friends, and worry and forget all about the love, family, relationship issues, but just try to get along. Think of yourself as roommates, because in that kind of situation where you are so dependent and can't leave, I would want to get my needs met elsewhere, my emotional needs met elsewhere, and not try to push the person I'm living with into doing more, giving more, being more, especially if he or she is already mentally ill. So you guys need each other in some ways, and that's not a bad thing, but maybe the way you have defined how you care about each other isn't working for your situation. And even if you're married, you know, there are many ways to be married, but understand that you may, and I don't know if you have other circumstances, you know, if you can go live with someone else or get to a shelter and get social support. But if you really believe this is the only place that you can be, and it's the safest place that you can be, then you have to work at ways to be maybe less demanding, less engaged, less, because if you know he's not going to give you more, why push him? And why not go to places where you can get more, like your loving community, like recovery, like sponsors, like, you know, all of that. And I'm sorry to deliver that message, but you know, certainly we always can ask for what we want. You know, it never really is that upsetting to anyone when we say, I'd like this, I need this, if you could do this, it would make me happy. It's when we start to make other people wrong, if they're not being the person we want them to be, if they're not treating us the way we think they should, and we start shitting on them with our anger, nagging, whining, complaining, when the truth is they are just who they are. And that doesn't seem like it's going to change. And so how can I, if I can't leave, make this as tolerable and safe as I can make it? And that's all about that's all, by the way, not about emotions. It's all an intellectual, it's like solving a puzzle. How can we make this work?
So in the Mark Anthony Lord webinar that we have on Thursday evenings, he does some mindfulness meditation stuff. And I'm really not good at that. I'm going to just own that. So, because I'm really too spastic. So anyway, but what I find when I do that is it really helps calm me down and takes me to a different place. And I would invite you to consider, there's some posted on the website, you can watch some of the older ones, but I'm wondering if just from a physical standpoint, you know, if his anger is making you suffer more, if doing something that would help calm your body would help at least be a little counteractive for that. So I just invite you to try that. Okay, next question. What does it look like for lengthened success of recovery for an essay with schizoid personality disorder, sexual imprinting, defensiveness, verbally abusive, not fully surrendered, shown guilt but not remorse with a low deficit of moral compass? Concerned how personality disorders and low moral compass affect recovery success and trust building. Would treatment be different with a personality disorder, 40-year marriage? D-Day was 3 years ago. He's in a group in therapy for 3 years. I'm seeing our retirement disappearing.
Does she mean, Tammy, do you mean like our retirement money
Savings,
or more like
yes,
the hope
well,
for
probably everything, but yeah, I took savings right off the bat. So,
well, so I'll just tell you what I know. I said this earlier and I'll repeat it. I think there are things that can be improved in relationships. You can improve communication, you can improve honesty, you can improve integrity, you can improve care, how you treat each other. But who that person is, especially by 69, not very likely. My concern is more about any abuse. You know, again, I guess, you know, part of it for me, in where I'm coming from now, and I want all of you to hear this, is that there are those of you who are 20 and 30 and maybe even 40 who are thinking, get out of there, change everything. What are you doing there? This is terrible, you know? And I understand that at 20, 30, and 40, I felt a lot like I can find a new relationship, I can move on to a new situation, I can turn my life around, you know, I can turn my life upside down and redo it. But I also want you guys to understand that for the people in the room who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and we're first facing the realities of who our partners have become or are, we may not have the same options that you do. And so I always want to be fair and not leave people feeling like, oh, well, you got to get out of there, or how can you put up with it? Or we have to survive and we have to adapt. And we may not get the partner that ever gets sober. You know, he or she may drink the rest of their lives, but we can still enjoy ourselves and the relationship. But boy, do we have to lower our expectations of what we're going to get there and make sure we get our needs met elsewhere in healthy ways. So I'm just saying that, you know, a lot of this takes negotiation and when there's mental illness involved, look, I grew up with mental illness. I live in I constantly lower my expectations in every situation because I always expect it to go badly. And that's just the reality of living with a mentally ill person. So listen, you've lived with this person 40 years. You know, you could write the book on this person. You know who he or she is. You know who they are to you, and you know who they are in the world. that's not going to change. He may he may become more honest, more real, more have more integrity. If he really works a program, he could become a kinder, gentler person. But what part is mental illness? What part is personality disorder? You know, it's very hard to tell. And at 69, that a lot of that is pretty fixed. So, boy, when I'm 69, I hope nobody tells me that, but that's what I think.
My partner claims he would never go to porn unless he was extremely depressed. He says it soothes him. He also claims he doesn't go there to salivate or watch people having sex. He likes the escape of the trance. I have seen the trails of the website visits, and believe me, there's plenty of raw and perverted material, including very young teens. Who does he think he's kidding? He owned up to masturbation being a problem at times. Is this just part of the rationalization and justifications he tells himself? Or does he think I am truly a dunce?
Truly a dunce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the hardest part for you as a spouse. He doesn't think about you at all. He just thinks, oh, this is easy to get away with. I'll just do that and she'll never know. And if you find out, he just figures, well, I mean, he's not thinking about you. He's only thinking about himself, what he wants, what he needs, you know, and you're very secondary in this situation. So I don't think you really have his attention from what I hear. So, and the reason I'm saying that is it sounds like I hear a lot of being put off and dismissed and kind of gaslighted. Like, oh, you know, you said, was this the person who used the word dunce?
Or does he think I am truly a dunce?
Right. So he's gaslighting you. And as long as he continues to get away with his lies in his mind, get away with, in other words, get away with you haven't left, you haven't called a lawyer, or you haven't, you know, whatever the big deal would be for him. As far as he's concerned, he's still getting away with whatever he was getting away with. It's just you're becoming a bit of a bother because you're kind of poking into his stash, and he probably doesn't like that. I would also be thinking about how often is he hooking up with other people? How often is he hooking up online? Because porn cam girls, people are online having sex with you, come hand in hand with porn. The porn's free. The cam girl is there, comes up in a pop-up window waiting for you. Anytime anyone pulls up porn, they get a person as well. So is he having sex online? Is he, you know, I just don't think, here's the deal. I don't think you can trust him because you don't really have reality clear in mind, and he is not going to give it to you. But not because he thinks you're a dunce, because he wants to keep getting away with what is more important to him at this moment than you are, which is what he wants to do.
So the next one is, my partner has been violent at intervals throughout our long 30-year marriage. He swears at me and puts me down. I have comorbid PTSD and I'm being treated for trauma specialist. I have struggled with being stuck in fight or flight for years. His porn addiction seems to be tied to the rages. Is there any hope for recovery with someone who is in their mid-60s, or are these patterns so ingrained that I should just finally give up?
Well, I can't answer that because some patterns are like this. No matter who you were, he's going to lash out. You know, some patterns are like, there's just one thing that makes you crazy that you can't help but keep bringing up, and it's the one thing that he lashes out about. In other words, there may be something that you guys can work around, or that may be more like this other person was saying, personality related. The person reacts to everything. And I can't really answer that for you, but I would look at the sum of your relationship. You know, how has it been most of the time? How have you, you know, the immediate issues aside, have you mostly felt heard? Have you mostly felt connected? Have you mostly felt, and I'm not saying that, and let me say this, there are many couples who feel very connected, and that's part of the greater betrayal for the partner, is he or she feels like, wait a minute, I felt like we were really close and you were doing all of this. We can actually feel very close to you as addicts and be doing all of that. And then when we put all that crap down, we can be even closer and more real. But don't think that some of the connection we had in the beginning wasn't real to us or wasn't real for you. Anyway, Tim, I'm going to go back to that question. Rage. So abuse is simply not acceptable. You know, we live in a time, not so much when I was growing up in the 60s, but boy, now I think we kind of get that it is not okay to hit someone. It is not okay to verbally abuse someone. It's not okay to slam your hand on the desk and scare other people. It is just not okay. And, you know, especially if your spouse has a history of being reactive and they have trauma. So there's two issues here. One, does he see you at all? Is he willing to pull back because he cares about you? Well, there's two issues. One, is he able to control his rage? And two, does he have any empathy for what his rage does to you? Either one of those doors could be an opening. But the answer is, if both of those are no, then you have to just get out of his way.
One of the things, well, you mentioned, look at the sum total of your relationship. And John Taylor on his Rockin' Relationships webinar earlier today talked about doing a timeline of the relationship and the positives and the negatives. And it was along those lines, but it was like the whole timeline of that. So for those of you that would like more information, that one will be posted probably on the website tomorrow. I would love for you to take a look at that because it was a really useful tool. So I'm going to move to the chat a minute. My husband has been cheating for years and masturbates multiple times per day to porn and even without porn, and is now in the process of taking tests for sex addiction and has attended one group therapy session. I caught him last night watching porn when he thought I was asleep, even though he said he would delete all the porn. He thinks he should get credit for reducing his porn masturbation use. However, I see this as further lying. He said he would delete his porn and get 3 videos on a separate device. He reads this website. Should he be abstaining from masturbation until the therapist says it's okay? I told him I saw some other websites suggest 30 to 90 days of abstaining.
Okay, so here's a thought for you. I wrote this book called Sex Addiction 101. I recommend you read it because you're looking in all the right directions. Like, what should he be doing? What should he not be doing? What should I expect? But you don't have the whole picture. And I think just reading a very simple text like that, or one of the other simple basic texts on sex addiction, all of them, by the way, are on sex and relationship healing. We have a whole resources section with every book for partners, for spouses, for sexual issues, for homosexual, I mean, for everything is sort of listed there on the website. But I really would recommend you get a better sense of the whole thing. I wanted to read this other part. Now I'm reading this, Tammy.
Okay.
Oh, here's one of the credit. Yes. Okay. First of all, about getting 3 videos on a separate device. Okay. That's like bargaining with chaos. Okay. You can't bargain with chaos, right, Tammy?
Correct.
Okay. So, he's trying to say like, well, 6 of one is not half a dozen of another. It's like he either deals with it or he doesn't.
Or I'm only going to have 3 drinks instead of having the.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great thank you, Tammy. It's like I'll only go to the casino and spend $100 as long as I spend $100. I'll be fine. No, you're an addict. You don't get to do any of that. So maybe what I'm really hearing, and the best thing advice we can give you tonight is he doesn't get it yet. There's a lack of embracing the whole issue. In terms of how he's looking at it. And as a result, he's still bargaining. Well, can I put this on here? And if you think about the whole grief process and all of us kind of learned that in high school, bargaining is a really early stage of grief. It's like, no, they really can't be in the hospital. I just saw them this morning. That's well, but I can't do this, but maybe we can do, that's the same thing. He's trying to figure out how to have his cake and eat it too. And he hasn't figured out yet that he's going to lose all of that. And this is okay. This is where he's at. But I think it's okay for you to also not be really close to him, not be really validated because he's not there yet. Why would you want to sing his praises? Because he's still bargaining with his addiction. I think you could call it out for what it is. You could say, oh, I can see you're bargaining with it. At least you're taking a look at it, but I'm not sure that I would sing his praises yet. But I wanted to say something about him. You're cheering for him. So I have a lovely story about this that I like to tell, which is like this. I go to a 12-step meeting. I'm being an average person. I go to a 12-step meeting. I'm married to a woman. I've been acting out for 6 years with prostitutes. We have 2 kids at home. And I've been going to 12-step meetings for the last 3 months. I'm feeling really good about myself. I've stopped all that behavior. I've talked about it. I feel like I have no more secrets. Maybe my spouse doesn't know everything, but in my program they do. And I'm feeling good about myself. And I started therapy and I've started exercising again. And, I just have a lot more hope. And believe it or not, on the day of my 90th meeting or 90 days in recovery, they gave me this nice chip. And I went to the meeting and everybody passed around and said, oh, that's a really nice chip. It said 90 days, congratulations, 1 day at a time and all that. And then I took the chip to my group therapy and all the men there said, oh my God, that's amazing. You did a great job, 90 days. How amazing is that? And then I went home to my wife and you know what she said? She said, big fucking deal. So you got a chip for 90 days, but you cheated on me for 3 years and I'm supposed to feel good about it. Well, I don't. And then the guy goes back to his group and he says, do you believe what a witch my wife is? And then he goes back to, and everyone says, oh yeah, my wife's a witch too. And then everyone has themselves convinced that they should be getting more support from their wives. And the reality is, he hurt you. You're not the person who can support him right now. He let you down. You're angry at him. Your job in the first year is to be angry, to try to find out everything you can, and to get a real good cohort of other support so you can have other women on your side, and to really think about whether you want to stay in this relationship. That's kind of what your first year is about. It's certainly not about forgiving him, making him feel better, but the question you asked is so important. He thinks he deserves credit for 3 weeks or whatever it is, and you know what? He is right. He does deserve credit. People in his program need to give him a hug and say, wow, you're doing great. You're coming to those meetings. His therapist needs to say, I'm so proud of you. You're going on the 3rd week to those meetings, because it's baby steps for him, and each one needs to be cheered for, but not by you. And it's not that you aren't glad that he's doing what he's doing. It's not that you don't approve, and good for him, but you're not the person who needs to say, woohoo, love you, babe. You know, you're not cheating on me today. That's for other people to do. You need to go to other people who you love, who care about you, and say, I fucking hate him. He's ruined my life. And now he wants to cheer. You know, you need to go a place where you can express what you feel so that you aren't constantly angry at him. And it kind of works like that. So, Pam?
And I wanted to add, and yes, there's actually a lot of stuff out there about, you know, length of time and everything, but and I get, because you said, you know, he says it's hard to stop. Yes, it's hard to stop. You know, it's hard to stop whatever addictive behavior is, particularly because we don't have coping skills for dealing with life on life's terms. And so you're in that terrible in-between where you aren't going to do the addictive behavior, but you also don't have the tools yet. So that's why there's programs, and that's why you have this intensive coming up, because it'll give you a foundation of recovery. I mean, you need to have tools to be able to deal with life, and you know what? And being uncomfortable isn't going to kill us. We survive that. Yes, we're uncomfortable in our own skin. We're uncomfortable in our emotions. Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with you as his spouse for wanting him to be a better man, a better husband, a better whatever. You know, who wouldn't want, listen, anybody I'm with, I would want them to want me to be a better person too. So hang in there with this. It sounds like he's almost getting there. Okay.
Do you have time for one more?
We
got 2 more, but do you want to do one more, or should we?
I'm going to pick it though, because they're hard.
I was going to do the first one.
I don't like the first one. That makes me feel uncomfortable. Oh. Sorry.
Okay.
Can we do the second one?
Okay. My husband has been to a 45-day inpatient for porn addiction and sexual anorexia, which you'll have to elaborate on. He has been out for 3 months. How do we begin to overcome lack of sex? Some say that this is actually prolonging the addiction. He is currently looking for an IOP as he needs more structure to work the program. Thoughts? Well,
I don't know your situation at all, so I don't know your history around having sex, but let me say a few things. Sex addiction aside, I think it's really important to just establish some norms around sexuality for couples. Not every couple has sex all the time. Some couples don't have sex. Some couples have a lot of sex sometimes. Sometimes one person in a coupleship wants to have a lot of sex and the other person doesn't for a period of time, and then that switches. Sometimes one person is always the one who wants to have more sex and the other person never does or rarely does. And none of this may have anything to do with your love and affection for each other. It may simply have to do with who you are as a sexual being. So I do want to say that because you may be a couple, I know this is really hard for people to believe. If you're okay with your not having a lot of sex and he's okay with your not having a lot of sex, nobody's looking over your shoulder saying you need to have more sex. It's okay to be partners who aren't having lots of sex. I understand that part of going through recovery, believe me, I understand this, is to find what your norm is outside of all that craziness. And maybe your hope is that you will have more intimacy and more sexuality. And I hope that's true for you, but I don't know if that's true. It's not a guarantee that comes with the addiction stopping. It's like, I might stop drinking, but that doesn't mean I'm going to start a new job. It just means I stopped drinking and I might be a better person, but I still may never go back to college, you know? So I don't know how your sex life, they may be somewhat different things. But there's something else I wanted to say too, is that what is sex? You know, for many of us, it's a penetrative, vaginal or some kind of oral experience. But what about, to me, what I think so many couples miss out on is all of the sensuality that comes, especially when they're dating. And that's the first thing that disappears when they're struggling, is the hand holding, the back rubs, the curling up at night, the doing a project together, all of the sensual and emotional things that bring you together as a couple that goes so much, and it can be sensual, but it doesn't necessarily have to be sex. And I think though there are a lot of things that couples can do to enjoy touch and holding. And I think I'll just tell you a little secret about Tammy. I think her husband took her out on his birthday.
He did.
A wonderful evening, because the thing that made him feel the best was having her have a good time. So I'm not sure they had sex or not, but boy, did they feel close and have a good time, and did she feel special? So, there are all kinds of ways that your relationship can build. You may not even be able to think about what might happen. It might come from him. So hopefully that's helpful. Did I embarrass you? I didn't mean to.
No, I think my cheeks are pink, but we got to see ABBA Mania last night. So yeah, that was so much fun. That's totally me, and he knows that. So that was, but yeah, it's like made our day. So.
Well, money.
Okay,
I have to go. Thanks, folks, for being here. Let me just remind you, I will be on In the Rooms Friday night at 6 o'clock California time. That's intherooms.com. And Tammy is going to tell you in just a second where the schedule is, where you can see all of the drop-in groups and hangouts and webinars. Also, Tammy and I have committed to creating we think that it's going to be important to have some key webinars up on the site about specific issues, like what is porn addiction, what is sex addiction, what is a healthy intimacy,
disclosure,
what is disclosure. So we're going to work on maybe 6 or 8 or 10 20-minute videos, or 15 or even 10, but just to explain the basics, and we'll put those up on the site in the next month or so. So thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you, Rob.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
No, it's Monday.
For those of you that are still here, the drop-in groups, we, like Dr. Rob mentioned, there are more coming. We've got more webinars coming. So if you go to sexandrelationshiphealing.com, if you haven't already registered, please do so. But then you'll be on the list to receive notifications about that. But the schedule is on the site, and we're working on making it more user-friendly. So hang in with us. So we've got the female sex and love addicts meeting, the initial meeting of that tomorrow. And we, like I said, added a partner group yesterday that went very well. So we will continue to have more resources for each of you. So thank you so much for attending tonight. We so appreciate you being here.